I'm Jeetu Patel, and then we have Navrina Singh from Credo AI. We've got Arvind Jai from Glean. We've got Martin Lund from Cisco, who runs our silicon business. And they're going to get me a chair. Have a seat. we added Martin as a last-minute addition because I felt like it would be so useful to talk about the full stack from all the way from silicon all the way to the applications. So what we thought we'd do is just have a very unrehearsed conversation. We haven't really done any rehearsal of questions. We haven't done any of that. We figured we'd just have a conversation with everyone. Thank you so much. I'm Jeetu Patel. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Cisco. And what I thought I'd do is maybe we'll start with Navrina, but we'll just get each one of them to kind of introduce their companies real quickly. And they're all, they've each been CEOs in their lives, and two of them are CEOs, and Martin is actually running our silicon business. But Navrina, you want to just start with Credo AI and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Navrina Singh. I'm the founder and CEO of Credo AI. We are an AI governance software company. What that means is we help you figure out risk within your AI applications, whether they are first party or third party, and we help you get to compliance with emerging AI standards and regulations.
Yeah, hi, my name is Arvind. I'm the founder and CEO of Glean. You can think of Glean like the Google or ChatGPT, but inside your company. Glean connects with all of your company's data and information and then helps your employees get quick answers to any questions that they have, powered by your company knowledge.
So basically like an enterprise search.
Exactly, yeah.
And then
and I'm Martin Lund, and I'm the
this is the first time I'm seeing you in a tie, buddy.
Oh, it's good, huh?
This is great.
It's good. It's nice. I'm the engineering guy. I do hardware, and so all of hardware and all silicon and optics for Cisco. So I'm the physics in the physical realm more than the software, setting the boundaries what's possible.
And so what we're going to do is we'll talk about the entirety of the stack, but let's start with what's going on in the market right now. And maybe, Arvind, I'll start with you. What is happening in the AI market that's getting you the most excited? What's meaningfully noteworthy right now compared to what was happening like maybe a year or two ago?
Yeah, well, so first of all, it's just the excitement in the market. Like, there is no enterprise that you will find today, that is not working hard to figure out how they can use AI, bring AI technologies to their employees, and drive value through it. So AI has become not just a early experiment. It's a real thing. It's a transformation that everybody wants to drive, and that of course generates a lot of demand for startups like ours. We're seeing a lot of success with a few different applications internally. Number one is of course just knowledge management, knowledge access. So like helping employees make sense out of your enterprise knowledge, get answers to their questions. That's the space that we play in. So there's a lot of demand for products like those. But then there are a lot of functional applications that are gaining a lot of steam, from developer products, helping people code, to customer service, and then amazing toolkit for go-to-market teams, sales and marketing, automate a lot of different business functions that they have.
And in your mind, what is going to be the first kind of major app for AI that'll go fully automated, like where you can get 80-90% of a job done rather than just getting a few tasks done?
Yeah, I think in service functions, you can already see that happen. So whether it's IT support, HR support, customer service, if you think about tickets that agents resolve, 90% of them are already automatable through AI. So you can see a good amount of replacement in that sense, from humans to agents, that will actually go help resolve those tickets and tasks. But I think one thing that I would like to add, it's not that's not the exciting part of AI.
Yeah.
To me, I think that is that's the kind of that you need those kind of things, because that's what actually creates budgets for you to actually do something bigger and more amazing with AI. So you drive a little bit of efficiency, you get the dollars, you reinvest in AI, and you'll be able to build newer products, or products that you couldn't have thought about building before. That's sort of where the real value of AI is going to come in in the next few years, where we're going to see like a lot of great innovations, companies, fundamentally changing, like in terms of, what they look like and what products they're able to build.
And Navrina, from your standpoint, it's like the pace at which AI is moving is pretty rapid, and what you're doing is making sure that there's the right level of risk management. So it's the other side of extreme productivity is the risk side of the house, so that we don't actually go become the wild west. To tell us about what, from your perspective, is actually generating this demand for risk management this early in the game.
It's interesting, Jeetu. I'll share with you that most of our customers actually are using governance not for risk management. They're actually using it for trust building. So everything that Arvind spoke about, whether you're using AI in customer service or marketing, one of the core things is, can you actually have trust in those applications? And especially, let's say, if you're an organization buying Glean, you want to make sure that Glean is not adding additional risk to your organization. So what we are seeing in the governance space is this exciting opportunity to use governance as a launchpad to innovation. And we have a joke inside. We actually help AI cowboys become AI heroes, because we are helping provide the right guardrails and really thinking about context of use. So as an example, one of the largest financial services has been our customer now for 4 years. They use AI, not only first party, but third party, for everything from fraud models to portfolio optimizing models to marketing models. And with governance, what they have found is, one, they're able to adopt any new Gen AI capability much more faster than their competitors. So before governance, it would take them anywhere from 5 to 6 months to test it out in a sandbox. But after governance, they were able to do that in less than 3 weeks. That's one, like, just to add to the product innovation. The second is, as they are building these AI applications and selling into banks, banks are highly regulated. So because of governance, they're able to build that very quick trust with them through transparency reporting, through auditability. So, it's less so about risk management. It is more about, how can I build trust with my end consumers, but how can I also get confidence I can bring all these great AI innovations quickly within the fold of my organization.
That makes a lot of sense. And Martin, you are the bottom of the stack. You build silicon. I mean that in a good way.
Foundation.
It's like everything starts from the origination of the silicon. And so talk to us a little bit about, one, what is Cisco doing with silicon? Two, how do you see this entire kind of market shaping up? And will we ever be in this non-supply constrained world ever? Or are we always going to be kind of constrained for compute and supply in silicon?
It's a great question, the last one. I think the first one is that it's probably little known fact that Cisco built some of the most complex and advanced semiconductors, as a fabless model as anybody. Like, they're same size and scale as what NVIDIA does or what Broadcom does. So we're kind of a handful of people that are on the frontier of building very advanced silicon. And we do that because it is required for us to continue to be relevant in this space. We have a full stack of solution that goes both from the edge all the way to the core into the data center. And I find it, it's so interesting listening to the rate of innovation and what's going to go happening. And I've been in Silicon Valley for 25 years. I have never seen things move this fast across the entire stack. Like hardware, middleware, compute, software, applications on tap, all of it is an absolute fire. And that drives like a demand of, for sure, compute, but also networking, because without networking, your GPUs are not, you need to connect your million GPUs together or whatever it is. You really need networking as a key enabler. And silicon is one of those things that once you build it, it's a very highly scalable model if you have enough fab capacity. I think, though, that we may run into power limitations before we run into sort of sustained problems with silicon, because you can buy new fabs and build them in a couple of years.
Do you think the power is going to be the biggest constraint for the foreseeable future?
I think right now it's certainly a limiting in terms of deployment of data centers and where it is. It's like there might be enough power, but it may not be where you need it.
Yeah. And so the way that we think about it, by the way, at Cisco is there's 5 core components that you need for AI. So you need compute, then there's the model and the algorithms, there's data, there's networking, and there's security. And if those five don't come together, you've not actually got the right infrastructure to go build applications on top of that at a fast pace. And so let's talk about one or two more macro questions, and we'll go into the details of your products and all of that. But the macro question on AI is, do you believe that, or when will you think that AI is going to actually be able to do things that humans could not imagine that we would be able to get done, Arvind? And so, like, for example, right now, a lot of these conversations that we have tend to be very skeuomorphic in nature. And so you might start with, well, let's make sure that you have a human who is a contact center agent. Now I'm going to have a digital agent who's a contact center agent. But the true power is not just aggregating insights, and specifically in search, right? But it's actually coming up with original insights that might have not existed, that allow us to cure cancer and allow us to do things. And on the enterprise, there might also be other insights that we might have not had because we didn't connect two and two together.
Yeah.
When do you think that starts happening versus just finding information, which is an interesting problem?
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's a very kind of incremental
Yeah.
solve, even though it's been so hard to find information.
Yeah.
That's not the holy grail.
Yeah, 100%. I think one, I would say that already, like, AI is actually allowing us to do things that, like, 1 year back, we couldn't have, first of all, like, we couldn't have imagined a machine being able to do those things. And second, we also could not have imagined, like, us doing it, because, AI does bring, unique powers.
Like, what can you do today, Arvind,
Yeah.
that you could not do a year ago in Glean?
Yeah. So there are two parts to that answer.
Yeah.
One is that, let's say that me as a non-developer, like, what are the things I can do, which, before, like, would have required me to be an engineer with a lot of, like, experience to actually go build those applications. AI is actually really democratizing, the ability for someone to build complex systems, have AI, write code on the fly. And I'll give you one simple example. Like, in my own company, I had this anxiety always that, people actually have too many meetings with each other. So I feel like, they're not coding, right? Which is what they should be doing as opposed to talking to each other. And so I wanted to just, get answers to these questions. How often do people meet? How many meetings do we have? Like, as a developer, are they getting at least, 50% of their time, to write code? And all those questions, like, they remain questions for me for many years, because I could not actually afford to actually have somebody in engineering go build that system, like, connect into our, enterprise data, our calendar data, and do those analysis. But now, like, in this new agentic architecture, like, within Glean, we have calendar connected, and I can just ask this question, and AI is able to actually go fetch the data, write the code on the fly, do the analysis. And so as a non-engineer, like, I feel like, I have capabilities that I'd never had before. This is not net new capability in the sense that if somebody was an engineer, they could have done it before. It's just that you brought that capability to a non-engineer. But then the, like, other things, like, I think, like, when you think about, like, especially in creative, you see how folks have been able to generate, like, amazing movie, video and audio production through AI, generate music, which, like, was not like, anywhere close to that level of capabilities before. So you see, like, like, in pockets of areas, like, they're not at scale, but you could already see people being able to do things, that, they could have not imagined ever. And I think this will just continue. And I think, like, it's going to become more and more meaningful, like, serious areas, like, for example, drug discovery, disease cure. We're going to see again, systems, that are, going to be coming, which were sort of, like, out of reach of, like, our current research capabilities.
So do you see a world where I'm using Glean?
Yeah.
And there's data sets that are in two different organizations. Like, let's say there's marketing is working on something, and product is working on something. And then all of a sudden, Glean makes a recommendation for a product idea that comes because of an insight that was a joint insight between the two of them that did not exist prior to you doing that. Like, do you see that world happening? And if so, in what time frame are you talking about?
Yeah, well, that's actually like, hopefully within the next 1 year, you will see some, good things there. So one like, I feel um, like the way we work is going to fundamentally change in the next few years. Um, One prediction that I have is that in 5 years from now, um, 90% of the work that we do, we won't be doing anymore, like as knowledge workers. Like there's going to be, like we'll still be doing like, the ultimate decision making, and but there's going to be a team of AI agents that's going to be around us, that's going to be supporting us in our day-to-day work. And this team is not going to be an agent like, today's agent, which you have to sort of command them to do things for you.
Right.
They're going to be proactive in nature, and like it's always around me. Like, they know my work, they know my goals, my OKRs, and like continuously they're sort of, helping me with my work. As an example, let's say I have a long commute, to go to my office. The agent is smart enough to actually give me give me a podcast style sort of like, prep for the day. Like, like look at my day, look at my meetings. It knows already like what things I need to read for those meetings, and just, it knows I have 38 minutes to actually create that sort of package, that will, make me, ready for the day, and it does that for you. So those are the kind of things, that you're going to be seeing, and then like none of those actually feel to me that they are like, like technologically, like, there's anything that's stopping us from achieving it, with the current model power, with the current set of technologies.
So in this 90
Yeah.
percent of the jobs not being there that are there today,
Yeah.
do you see then that there will be less jobs, or do you think that we will have to create 90% of, or there'll be different jobs that'll get created?
Yeah.
And if it's going to be 90% of the jobs that get created again,
Yeah.
what are those jobs
Yeah.
that
No,
don't exist today?
Yeah, I think there is AI is 100% going to be a net creation of jobs. It's not going to actually reduce jobs. In fact, I was just reading a study yesterday. I think it was, I'm forgetting who did it, but which talked about that AI in the next few years is going to create 150 million new jobs and is going to displace 90 million existing jobs. So overall,
What's
you
an
know,
example of a new job that doesn't exist today?
so the I think the um, like so first, like I think, like existing jobs are going to get redefined.
Right.
So for example, you have a radiologist today, and there's going to be a radiologist of the future, and they just will have fundamentally different set of capabilities, in terms of what they're able to do for you. It doesn't have to be both of them. Like, I feel like, both of them are going to be like, it's a human today, it's going to be a human tomorrow. But I think, like the kind of insights, the kind of predictions, that person is able to do, like with all the AI tools that are available to them, is going to be significantly more powerful for all of us. So that's the interesting thing. Like, most of the skills that they use today are not going to be, they're not going to be using those skills anymore. So the job of today is sort of gone, but the job, but they have, a lot of that is actually being done by AI for them. But the more capabilities that they'll bring to the job, that sort of, is going to be the radiologist of the future. So that's sort of like how we think that most of these jobs will actually remain, but like, the nature of the job fundamentally changes.
And Navrina, what have we gotten wrong in society so far about risk with AI?
Oh my God, lots. I think governance and risk is so misunderstood because it's seen as you're slowing down innovation, and it's actually enabling innovation. And before I go into that, Jeetu, I just wanted to add something to what Arvind was saying. We are already seeing what we call persona metamorphosis, which is, taking your existing skills but sort of applying it for this age of AI. As an example, within the organizations which we work with, which are primarily Global 2000s, we are seeing either a data scientist move into a governance role, so governance of artificial intelligence, or we are seeing a policy manager move into the similar role. And we've started to also see a lot of discussion around agentic governance. So what does a digital agent manager role look like, right? So there's already, I would say, a lot of excitement around how you can use your current skills, but for digital agents' age. And so when you think about, this future scenario where you might be living in this agentic world, governance and risk management takes on a whole new meaning. And I think the misunderstood part is actually if you put the foundation of governance early on, how you can not only build that trust, but you can be very proactive in making sure all your objectives, the agents that Arvind was talking about, actually meet those goals. And so I think the biggest thing for us right now is investing early in integrated governance so that it's not like an afterthought after you've deployed your AI applications in production, but really actually thinking about it from the design state and moving all the way through development and production is where we've started to see benefits.
We last Wednesday we actually announced a product. In fact, Navrina and Arvind and Martin were all at that event that we did in Palo Alto, and we announced a product called AI Defense. And AI Defense was a safety and security product. And most people think about security as being something that slows down innovation. And I completely agree with Navrina, because the way that I think the market's evolving is, if done in the right way, these technologies will accelerate innovation, because you won't have to do a trade-off between security and safety versus the actual speed of innovation that you see. So, what Navrina is talking about is a pretty important kind of mental model that we all have to think about, which is you will slow it down if you don't do it. Because the first time that a breach happens, the first time there's some kind of compliance risk, you will actually have to stall your business completely. Whereas if you actually make sure that you take the right precautionary measures up front, it accelerates the business at a pretty rapid pace.
By the way, I would second that. Like, we work with, lots of large enterprises, and oftentimes, there's so much excitement for AI.
That's right.
And so we talk to people who are not in security, and we start working on projects only to find out later that, well, like, it didn't meet, the compliance requirements or the governance requirements. I think like having, having a product like, AI Defense, like first, like, it sort of brings, the familiarity of AI, with the CISO, with the security teams. So they sort of already are bought in, in terms of like, well, yes, I have frameworks, I have technologies like yours, that actually are going to allow me to safely deliver AI. And that's sort of like, again, like, I think ultimately, like, like I could attest, like, as a product, vendor, who's always sort of felt like handicapped by security people, like, it slows us down. But like, we've sort of started to realize that I think, bringing them in early and having, this innovation that's happening in AI security space is really helping accelerate, like, AI adoption in the enterprise.
It's also one of the interesting things that's happening in the market right now, if you think about it, is the fundamental application stack is changing with AI. Because it used to be that you'd have kind of a three-tiered model, right? You'd have your infrastructure, on top of it you'd have your, kind of data, and then you'd have an application or business logic tier, and of course there's some presentation tier. Now what you've added is another layer in that stack, which is models. Now, what's interesting about models is they're fundamentally non-deterministic in nature, which means that they're unpredictable. And sometimes it's actually used as a feature. Hallucination in a creative world, movie script writing, is actually a feature. It's not a good thing if you're going out and managing the accuracy of a supply chain, but it's very, very good if you're managing the kind of a creative process and something. So what you have to do is make sure that the validation of the model has to happen on a per use case basis, on a per application basis. And if you have multiple models, if we live in a world that's going to be multi-model, multi-cloud, multi-agent, you have to have a common substrate of how you manage security across. Otherwise, every model is going to do it differently. Every application is going to do it differently. It'll take you an enormous amount of time to get any kind of standardization and predictability in the model. By the way, interesting tidbit I was thinking about. All four of us, this is completely coincidental, and this tells you the power of the geography that's happening. Should we get a chair? The power of the geography. Where do you live?
Los Altos in Bay Area.
Where do you live?
Los Altos.
Where do you live?
Los Altos.
Oh, wow.
Where do you think I live? Kind of weird.
We just realized it before. Like,
All four of us are like a mile and a half away from each other.
I think there's one thing I found very interesting. First is this: how far does this go?
Yeah.
What's the limit of intelligence? Is a crazy thing. Like how do we then? But if you just think of the agents a little bit like running functions similar to certain humans or something. Then you also need to make sure that they show up for work. They complete their work on time, right? Like this is like actually instrumented and no. So and there will be
Good news is they won't ask for raises.
No, but they cost money. There's electricity and there's lots. They may consume more power than they were allocated for them. So there are problems. They might be sick one day, and then what do you do with them? You have to have resiliency. It's in a model of like that. You have to have a like different level of SLAs for these workloads. In the past, it's like okay, go reboot the server. Here, like in a state of thousands of these things that you have to have observability and see if it's there. Upgrade the individual. You're at the wrong version. Let's upgrade you, but not you. I find it like maybe that's a lot of that role of the humans will be around trying just to keep track of all these agents.
So one quick question, Martin, on this front for you is, if you think about the amount of money that the world has spent on training so far, it's about 225 billion, roughly, give or take, right? If you think about the amount of revenue that's generated from inferencing so far, even though inferencing is going to be probably 10 to 20x of training, right now it's about 10-ish billion, right? Might be slightly higher, but not meaningfully higher. And now you're starting to see agentic workflows come in where the architecture is changing again, where it's not just pre-training and post-training, but you're doing test time compute, where you will give the agents some think time to be able to iterate on something rather than just saying, go out and do it and immediately you'll get an answer. You'll tell an agent, go get this job done. They'll go kind of iterate on it, and they might actually use some compute cycles. And what you're finding is the iteration and test time compute is providing, in some cases, greater benefit than the scaling laws of more data and more training that happens up front, right? So how are you thinking about this from an infra standpoint when you start thinking about building infrastructure for silicon? And how does networking come into play? Why is networking relevant in an AI stack?
Well, first of all, just in the training cluster, connecting 1 million CPUs or 100,000 CPUs together at a maximum cross-sectional bandwidth is a big job. It is a massive, complicated thing, and it's like think of AI training as one big program that you run. It just runs for 72 days, and you run it on 100,000 CPUs, and if one of them craps out, you have to start over, and then you do checkpoints. So it's like a big program, one big program. So networking is important in feeding that beast and not drop packets. So you have to return to
low latency, high performance, energy efficient
at a level that we have not seen before. I did a little math on sort of the evolution of semiconductor switching speeds over the last 2 decades. It's 4 orders of magnitude. That's 10,000 times faster than it was 22 years ago. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down. It's actually moving faster. It's remarkable. And the other thing also is, well, networking, why is that important? Because it actually moves these bits that are, either communicating the data for the training model or the result of the decisions back and forth. And a lot of this will also happen at the edge. Because when you will have applications, maybe not all of them have thought through, but maybe one of them is the self-driving car. That's not going to run in the cloud. You're not going to drive around and hope that AT&T network is functioning, right? It's local because of the compute resources and the latency required and the vast amount of data. So you have applications like that. And you'll have sort of in between where you move data in and out of the cloud. So networking from the edge to the cloud is super, super important. And it will continue to be so, even more so maybe than it is today.
So let's assume for a moment that you have full refactoring of the entire stack that's happening on AI. And every single application that you have is going to be AI enabled in some way. Let's talk about monetization and pricing for a second. How does the future of monetization work with AI? And I'll give you a few examples on how this might work, right? So today, most SaaS applications, how are they priced? Per user, per month, right? Is it going to continue to be per user per month? Is it going to be where you're going to do some kind of a cost plus model? So this is how much it takes for me for doing compute, so I'm going to do a certain amount of price on top of that. Is it going to be a model which is going to be value based. So I'm going to say that this is how much I'm going to give to you as value, and so I'm going to take a percentage of the value. Or is it going to be an outcome based model? Which one of the models will actually, and Aaron Levy, who's a good friend of mine, was at the same event, and he had a very interesting tweet on this, where he talked about the fact that he talked about these 4 models and how these would work out. So, Navrina, what's your take on how the monetization of AI is actually going to work?
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll give examples from governance space because it is, I think, ties in well to AI. We are seeing one pricing based on use case because, as you can imagine, there's so much context, right? So if you are developing a marketing application versus, let's say, a search application, very different context. So how do you actually monetize per use case is one of the models we are seeing emerge in the space that we are in. The second one is really fascinating as well. We are seeing pricing based on guardrails. So essentially, let's say if you have an application that you might be deploying in United States, and then you have an application you want to deploy in United States and India, and then you have an application you want to deploy in Europe and US. Now, in that case, the guardrails vary because the compliance requirements and regulation requirements vary. So we are seeing a lot of interesting new models, pricing models based on these guardrails. And then the third one that we are really seeing is value-based. Now, at the end of the day, there's a lot of excitement around artificial intelligence, but is that actually adding to your top line is a key question. So we have started to see, as an example, one of our CPG clients who uses governance, Credo AI's governance platform to manage its assets, they're trying to protect a chatbot, which is a customer support chatbot, which generates about 40 billion in revenue for them. So when you think about 40 billion, and if Credo AI is charging only, let's say, 100K, that just doesn't equate. So if we can look at...
But there will be a theoretical maximum that people will want to pay on that front as well. So it can't be a percentage of 40 billion.
Exactly. So how do you actually cap value is something that is getting actively discussed right now. But these are the 3 models we are seeing emerge in the governance space.
How about you, Arvind? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so I think I think even in the SaaS world, I'm actually surprised at how many different ways people have figured out, how they want to charge for their product. It's not always per user per month. Sometimes it's about assets, sometimes about number of systems connected.
By the way, those that don't know Arvind's background, he founded a company called Rubrik, and then also has founded Glean and was an engineer at Google prior to that. So he's seen a fair amount of range of these models. So
yeah, and so I think ultimately, the way I feel is, as a software company, software companies are used to a certain gross margin structure, and most of them, I think for them to sustain, they want to be at 75 to 80%. And so now everything is sort of back of the envelope calculation to sort of arrive there. And different companies will, try different models. For us also, when we started out, we are an end user product that every employee can use.
Do you have predictability on your gross margin yet?
We do right now. We can go into details of that. But since it was it's an employee-based product, every employee uses, so we started with a flat per employee per month fee. But now our product is also an AI platform, and people can build agents with it, and agents are doing work. And now there's no there's not even a person that you can charge for. So you have to necessarily shift to a consumption-based model, and which is where we look at how much money we spend doing a particular task on an agent, and you try to gross it up to sort of meet your margin objectives. So therefore, my feeling is that you will continue to see multiple models. Now, when you think about value-based or outcome-based, we've also seen you can actually go and buy these human replacements. For example, somebody is trying to sell me an AI-based SDR, and they're saying that, well, look, you pay...
SDR being a software development rep.
Yeah, it's like a sales rep,
sales development rep.
Yeah. That sets meetings for you. And for a human, you pay, say, $80,000, a year. And they're saying that, well, this is as good as a human, and I'm going to actually charge you 1/4 of that, and that's $20,000 per agent. But it's software, it's not as if so you don't, if you add like, a lot of value because AI does change jobs. It actually brings automation. But I don't think it actually gives, any company that ability to actually charge proportional value. Because ultimately you have to sort of come back to, well, there are other players, we're in a hyper competitive world, and I can also get that service for $1,000.
It's like Jeff Bezos says, your margin is my opportunity, because at some point in time, if you
Yeah.
overprice the product, then it's not going to work. The interesting part, here's the interesting part. OpenAI had a pro version. And from what I've heard, it was very interesting because, we had their chief operating officer at this event as well. So I was asking him this question. I was like, so how did you come up with the $20 per user per month pricing model? Extensive analysis done. They're like, no. And then we looked at each other. We said, yeah, $20 sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll go with 20.
Well,
But the interesting part was this. They had ultimate level of elasticity, because they could have gone to 40 and we would have had the same exact demand, right? And so they left a lot of money on the table by keeping it at 20, but the entire industry then coalesced to 20 after OpenAI. But here's the interesting part. They now have a pro version for $200 a user a month. They're losing money. It's negative gross margin on $200, which tells you something about the fact that there's so much usage, and it's so hard to predict usage on this stuff right now, that pricing is going to be in flux for a while. It's not going to be a predictable pricing model, Okay, let's talk about.
Can I just add something
Yeah,
to that, Jeetu?
yeah.
I think one of the reasons right now OpenAI is losing money is a user has more options. When they started out with ChatGPT way back when, and like even 6 months in, people didn't have options. Now you can just go to like either Anthropic and others. So one of the things which we are finding is very fascinating is you do have to do a little bit analysis when the advantage has sort of like.
But think about the
dissipated.
usage though, right? If it's $200 a user a month, and they're losing money on that SKU,
Yeah.
that says that the amount of usage that's happening over there is enormously high. It's actually a good problem to have
Yeah.
that early in the game, because that means that people have an intrinsic demand for that they're going to want to use it over and over and over again, that even at $200, which is 10x the price of the $20,
Yep.
they couldn't predict usage, right? I mean, that's a phenomenal signal from the market on how much this is going to get used. So I actually feel like it's on the pricing side, we will be in a massive experimentation mode for the next year, just because it's very hard to predict what the volumes are going to be. The other thing that's happening is, if you think about agentic right now, there's not really a true agent that has been delivered in the market yet, right? Like there's a prediction that there'll be agents delivered during 2025. But there's not really a true agent that's in the market that does a full job. And Brad Lightcap had a really good example, which was, the bar for an agent should be pretty high, which is they should be able to get the job done. So you give them something to do, they go get it done, and they come back to you after a day or two, or whatever the time period is, and get the job done. But it doesn't require that much more human intervention at that point. It just, the job gets done, right? As these agentic models get to be more prominent, you have no idea what the compute signal is going to be, and especially in the test time compute area, where you're going to have to make sure that you iterate, and the model thinks for a bit, it comes back, it iterates, says, you know what, this answer that I came up with is probably not the best answer, so I'm going to iterate a little bit more. These are kind of very interesting dynamics that have to be thought through in how pricing is going to get determined over time. Let's talk about another kind of topic area, and then I'd love to take some questions from the audience if you have any as well. But we can't leave without talking about regulation. What is happening in the world of regulatory oversight? Do you believe regulation is generally good, is generally bad? How would you think about it, Arvind?
Well, in AI, regulation is a must. We have to have it, especially like in consumer use cases. Like enterprises, are sort of limited in terms of there's natural selection from a customer themselves, like in terms of what they actually want to have AI do within their company. But I think in the consumer, in a public scenario, the damage that AI can do, how we are sort of how we grow as humans, like what we expect, in terms of what's real, what's not. AI blurs the boundary completely like, all of those. So I think I'm like 100% like, I feel like, it is, I think AI will create a lot of damage if not controlled.
Navrina?
It's a hard question, and the reason it's a hard question is if you say, should we have regulation for AI, I actually think no. But you need to have contextual regulations for artificial intelligence. I see Christina here, and Christina, she is the Chief Trust and Privacy Officer at IBM, and they've coined a really interesting term, which is called precision regulation. And we are big advocates for precision regulation, and what that means is within the context of use case. So let's say if you're thinking about hiring and use of artificial intelligence for hiring, within that contextual use case, the parameters and the evidence and the metrics that you need are very different than what you might need for claim processing, as an example, in insurance. So having thoughtful and intentional guardrails based on use case, absolutely pro it. Are we going to see like massive sort of blanket AI regulations? Absolutely not. I've been very fortunate to advise the White House over the past 4 years, work very closely with the EU AI office on the EU AI Act, which goes into effect in 2 weeks or 1 week. So it's really interesting to see blanket regulations. I don't think are going to be successful, but what we are going to see a little bit more of is precision regulations based on context. And are they necessary? I think some sort of guardrails are necessary, but again, they can't just be policies for the sake of policies. As an example, a big debate last year was using compute as a way to create governance thresholds. So if you're above, let's say, 10 to the 26 flops, there should be some guardrails. Those become really irrelevant. And so thinking about use case and being very precise about adaptive policymaking is what I'm pro for.
Yeah, I actually think there's a risk that we could get into of over-regulating and completely slowing down innovation in a pretty big way. So I generally agree with you that we have to make sure that there has to be a strong public-private partnership. But I think it's going to be very hard as a model to go out and regulate something where there's public policy that can move at the pace that this thing is moving. Exactly. It's just a very hard thing to go out and implement practically. So Martin, I want to come to you on a completely different topic, and then we'll take a question from the audience, which is, let's talk about, like, so far we've talked about, applications with AI. We've talked about agents and agentic architectures. But you and I have talked about this quite a bit on our long plane rides we've had from time to time. Robotics and humanoids and how that's actually going to evolve. Talk a little bit about that future and where your head is on that side.
I think it's all connected, right? We have a vast ability to build sophisticated robotics today, but if you combine that with sophisticated models that sits on top of it, you will very quickly find yourself in a mode where you cannot easily, at a distance, determine whether this is a human or whether this is not a human. Kind of a Blade Runner kind of scenarios, just a few years out. It has enormous potential for good as well. Like a lot of dangerous, jobs can be eliminated. We can have firefighters being out there firefighting wildfires, robots, right? Why not? But we could also have them as, soldiers. It's problematic.
Wouldn't the chips melt in the heat?
Yeah, there's cooling systems. It's fine. But it's true. But the whole notion, drones. I mean, it changes a lot of things when you get connected, autonomous systems moving around doing things. In most factories today, they're tethered. In the future, they will be moving around, and your Wi-Fi better not crap out on you, right? When it's coming at you. So there's just an amazing, like the dislocation of jobs that's going to happen at so many levels is staggering. And I wonder at some point maybe it becomes like, is it cheaper to hire a human for this task or to hire a high quality agent? Maybe just we'll get a low quality agent and it breaks a little bit more, but it's, make more mistakes. I mean, it's going to be such a weird... it's a very, very strange model. I think, though, on the positive note, the amount of human potential that are wasted on stupid things, like, that TPS reports equivalent. Right? The amount of human potential that are wasted is staggering. So this might be a good thing. And I think if we can fix our education system so it actually intelligently optimizing for the individual, maybe there's hope after all.
Let's take one question from the audience, but before we do that, I want to make sure that the panelists think about one question as well, which is, what's the thing that you're most hopeful for in AI, and what's the one thing that surprised you the most? We'll wrap up with that, but let's take one question. So, oh wow, there's a lot. Okay, so let's do a quick rapid fire. Sir, go fast. And ask only one person so we can take more questions.
So, thanks much for putting the panel together. Mario from Globals. If you see that exponentially grow, you mentioned, Martin, how many jobs will change. So then how do you see the impact on the future of jobs and AGI coming up? Like, what are we going to do? Like, basically, like, are we going to, like, sit down and do our hobbies, everybody? Or just, how do you see the future of, like, is the future generation will see, like, you guys need to work to get a living? Like, that will be the past of the thing of the past. Like, I wonder, how would you guys see that?
So I think maybe we'll have one person take this question, and we'll take one for the other one. But I think I would like to add to this question, which is, what is the human purpose at some point in time if everything gets automated, is what you're getting to. So who wants to take that?
Well, I can take it. I mean, I
Okay,
think
Arvind, go for it.
that's not a an exciting vision of the future where we're at the beach and AI agents talk to each other and large organizations run that way. Like I think that we always discover like new things to do, like new progress to be like how to make more progress. Like there are so many unsolved problems. We haven't yet figured out like another planet to go and make that inhabitable. So I think like I don't think we're going to be ever be running out of challenges that we need to solve. And I think these technology has always been an enabler for us, and this one is no different. I think it just enables us at even bigger level than like the past generations of technology.
Okay, another question, sir.
Thank you. I'm Anders Johnson. I'm with the International Labour Organization, so that's the UN agency for the world of work. Now, our members are not just governments, but they're also employers and workers. And we've been asking them a lot of questions about how are they actually using AI enterprises, everything from major multinationals all the way to micro and small and medium enterprises. And what they've been saying is that the places where, or the way in which AI is actually being used effectively is when it's not top-down. It's when it's not the management saying, this is what we need to do, but it's where it's a conversation, because workers very often, they have a better understanding of what they actually need. So are you seeing something like that as well when you're talking with enterprises? Or are you having those kind of conversations with employees to make sure that there's more of a kind of grassroots support for AI when it's actually used by enterprises?
Okay, Navrina, why don't you go with that one?
Absolutely.
Keep
So
it
I
to
would
30 seconds so we can actually, we have three and a half minutes left. So
interestingly, we are seeing AI as a very multi-stakeholder engagement, but mostly driven by grassroots. In all the organizations we work in Global 2000s, it's a user or an employee saying, I need it for X, for marketing or for something else. That also caused companies to realize how quickly their risk surface area increased, because a lot of these employees were using tools which were not approved by the company, and they were introducing additional risk. But yeah, I would say more than 95% of Global 2000s we work with is ground up.
awesome. Another one, go ahead. Actually, let's take one in the back. Sir, why don't you just talk about it, and we'll do you next.
Thank you very much. So I agree that innovation can also not be hindered by regulation. But what do you say to the European EU AI Act? Because we see that stuff is later available here in Europe. Would you agree or disagree?
Martin, you want to take that?
No.
Okay. Who wants to take that?
I can start. I think there's, again, with every regulation, there's good and bad aspects. With EU AI Act, one of the requirements that goes into effect on Feb 2nd is AI literacy. Absolutely brilliant, because guess what? If your employees are using AI and they don't even know what the pros and cons of that AI is, that's problematic. Now, the key question is, in the broader scheme of things, let's say Glean wants to operate in Europe and they already are, then what is the auditability requirement, quality management requirement, and more importantly, the conformity assessments? now Arvind needs to go figure that out. So that's more burdensome for him. So I would say it's like, it's give and take. It's some pros, some cons, but overall, we'll see how EUA Act fares in the next 2 years.
What's your question? Don't worry about the mic. Yeah, just go ahead. Oh, you have the mic, so go ahead.
Great panel. Thank you so much. I'm Matthew Lee from Poseidon Research, and we are opening up the black box to make AI understandable. I'm really interested and gladdened to hear you say that safety and security are profitable and part of the innovation process. So I'm just interested to hear what you think's next for safety and security.
I'll take that on since I just launched a product on safety and security. I think making sure that these unpredictable models actually behave predictably for every application, which is going to have a unique use case, is going to be a very, very important thing for safety and security. And so having the safety side, which is things like making sure that you don't have hallucinations or you don't have toxicity injected in the model or bias gets accounted for. And then on the security side, things like prompt injection attacks and any external factor like an adversary trying to go out and do something that changes the behavior of the model. Doing that in a consistent way across models, across applications, across agents, across clouds will be pretty important. So with that, let me, one sentence each on what you're most excited about and what surprised you the most.
Okay. What I'm most excited about is governance is becoming a core driver for AI innovation. And I think companies are recognizing it's not just how, that they're going to win in AI, but how they win in AI with governance is paramount. What surprised me the most is how little enterprises are investing in AI literacy for their employees and for their boards and for their executives.
Awesome. Arvind?
Well, I'm excited about the potential of technology. You're going to see better and better AI systems. This year, real agents are, driving real business process transformation. What has surprised me is AI has had a lot of hiccups, a lot of hallucinations, issues over the last 1 year, but it hasn't dampened the spirit, and everybody still believes that we got to go through this journey.
Awesome. Martin, really quick.
I'm super excited because I'm dyslexic and this stuff just makes me, works well. I'll just write the intent and the rest comes out. It's a good thing. What I'm surprised about is how few people realize how early we are in this phase. We are at the very, very beginning of a completely transformative part of the human sort of race. I really think we're at the beginning. We're 2 years into something that's going to be...
Let's give it up for this panel. Thank you, folks.